Imagine a silent current affairs studio in London. No rows of seats, no laughter to dull the edges, just two women on a crescent sofa under flawless, cool white light. One used to managing the story, the other used to taking it apart. Serena, Duchess of Elmswood, had come expecting a carefully curated sit-down. Victoria Lane had arrived with briefing papers, date-stamped quotes, and a single guiding principle. If what she heard didn't match the available record, the question would come back again. And tonight, for the first time in a long time, Serena would grasp something only when it was too late. On this program, emotion alone wouldn't carry the night. The set felt calmer than the headlines that had preceded it. A slate-grey, arc-shaped sofa curled around a round glass table, lit from beneath, the glow a soft wash of white that hinted at interrogation more than comfort. Thin strips of fuchsia and indigo light bled into the surface like a muted warning. Two identical ceramic mugs sat untouched on the table, placed with the sort of perfect symmetry you only see when a producer is trying to make conflict look like balance. Behind them, a vast video wall shifted in slow gradients of blue and violet. In the center, the program's title, Insight Tonight, hovered in clean white letters that looked less like a logo and more like a judgment waiting to be delivered. No live crowd, no applause sign, no chance to win the room, only lenses, microphones, and whatever truth managed to survive contact with both. Serena occupied the left curve of the sofa. Her posture could have been used in a training video. Shoulders open, spine straight, chin held level in the way of someone who has spent years knowing every angle will be photographed. She wore a soft ivory sweater with a simple neckline and a midnight blue skirt that fell neatly to mid-calf. High-heeled black boots anchored the outfit, polished enough to suggest she had considered even the possibility of standing abruptly and walking away. On the right curve sat Victoria Lane, short-sleeved, tailored dress in pale grey, hair swept back, a fine-point pen balanced between her fingers like a natural extension of her hand. A compact pile of cards rested beside her, not theatrical, not chaotic, just methodical. A floor manager's voice drifted across the set, gentle but final. "We're live in 5. Serena's gaze flicked to the nearest camera. A small, professional smile appeared, perfectly executed, entirely controlled. Victoria didn't look at the cameras at all. Her attention stayed on Serena. 4. Serena adjusted her hands, lacing her fingers together in her lap. Stillness as strategy. 3. Victoria's expression held courteous warmth, but it stopped short of her eyes, the eyes of someone whose job is to ask questions people would rather not answer. 2. Serena drew in a measured breath. 1. The red tally light blinked on. Victoria's voice slipped into the silence with the steady cadence audiences trust, even, clear, unrushed. "Good evening. I'm Victoria Lane. This is Insight Tonight. Our extended guest this evening is Serena, Duchess of Elmswood. We'll be talking about scrutiny, self-narrative, and how modern media can shape a life." Serena inclined her head in a small acceptance of the premise. Victoria turned slightly to face her, calm as ever. "Duchess Serena, thank you for being here." "Thank you for inviting me," Serena replied. The tone was smooth, neither chummy nor icy, precisely pitched. Victoria allowed a faint smile. "There's no live audience with us tonight, no distractions, just a conversation." Serena's eyes didn't waver. That's usually where the real story surfaces, if the conversation is allowed to be real. The line landed softly, velvet-wrapped steel. Victoria didn't react outwardly. "Let's start with something straightforward. You've spoken often about feeling miscast in the public imagination. If you could correct just one thing that people think they know about you, only one, what would you choose?" The invitation was open, generous, almost gentle, an easy prompt for reflection. Serena's smile tightened at the corners. "That I'm a problem to be managed," she answered without much pause. "It's a label women get when they refuse to inhabit the version of themselves other people find convenient." Victoria dipped her head, acknowledging the point without agreeing or disagreeing. "And in your view, why did that description stick?" Serena's gaze sharpened. The politeness stayed, but something more awake appeared behind it. "Because it served a purpose," she said, "for gossip outlets, for the structure around the crown, for anyone who benefited from shrinking me down." "When you say the structure," Victoria asked evenly, "are you talking about the royal household?" "I'm talking about a system," Serena replied, precise but firm. "A network built to protect itself first. The household is part of that, yes." Victoria let a moment of quiet open between them, long enough for viewers at home to register the weight of the claim. Then she leaned in a fraction, her tone still casual on the surface. "Here on Insight Tonight, language matters. When you call something a machine or a system, do you mean specific people making choices or entrenched rules and culture? They're different assertions." Serena's smile tightened at the corners. "I'm talking about what it felt like to live inside it, and with respect, Victoria, an obsession with pinning down every term can become a way of dodging the core issue." It was the first real spark, not an explosion, just the hiss of a match. Victoria's pen stilled over her notes. "Sometimes clarity is how we keep things fair. It's also how we make space for accountability." Serena's eyes narrowed a touch. "Accountability runs both ways." "It does," Victoria agreed calmly, "which is why I want to turn to something you've said more than once, that you were silenced." Serena's posture remained textbook perfect, but something in her shoulders pulled tight, like a door swinging softly on its hinges. "You've described feeling unable to speak, while also appearing in major interviews, creating media projects, issuing statements, leading charitable work. Some people watching may be wondering how those two realities coexist. How do you see that?" Serena's blink slowed, then smiled again, only this time it looked less like openness and more like restraint. "Having a voice isn't the same as being heard," she said. "You can speak and still be shut down." "Explain that," Victoria prompted. Serena leaned forward slightly, hands remaining composed in her lap, refusing to give the lenses anything that could be clipped into a flailing gesture. "When you tell your story and people decide ahead of time they won't listen, when context is cut away, intentions are twisted, your state of mind is mocked, your humanity reduced to a headline," she paused to let the words hang, "that is a kind of silencing." Victoria held her eyes. "And you believe that's what you went through?" Serena replied, "I'm not speculating. I lived it." The first flicker of impatience. Victoria didn't react emotionally. She moved structurally, building her bridge question by question. "All right," she said, "let's anchor this in something concrete. Your relationship with the press in this country." Serena's eyes brightened, alert, like she'd been expecting that pivot. "You've called parts of the coverage harsh and relentless. At the same time, critics argue that you and your husband have, at points, pursued high-profile projects and interviews that keep the spotlight on you. They say visibility has often been a choice. How do you respond to that?" Serena's smile disappeared entirely. "That framing is a polite way of normalizing harm. It puts abuse and existence on the same level, as if simply not disappearing is you asking for it." "You're equating scrutiny with abuse?" asked Victoria, unblinking. "I'm describing targeted harassment," she shot back, voice now edged with steel, "and I'm calling out the idea of, well, you chose this for what it is, a way to blame people for what's done to them." Victoria placed her pen gently on the table, as though even the faint click of plastic might disturb the air. "Serena, I want to tread carefully here, but we also have a duty to test stories when they collide with other evidence or with previous accounts. Conflicts," Serena repeated quietly, "or complexities." "Sometimes both," Victoria replied without hesitation. "Tonight we'll see which applies where." Serena regarded her for a long, cool second. The neon glow under the glass table suddenly felt colder. Then she gave a small nod, like someone accepting a challenge. "All right," she said softly. "Go ahead." Victoria returned the nod with equal control. "Let's talk about chronology," she said. The word sounded neutral, but for Serena it rang like a distant alarm. Her fingers tightened around each other in her lap, still neat, no longer relaxed. Victoria glanced down at her notes for the first time, then back to Serena. "In past interviews and statements, you—"
"That's a valid question," Victoria acknowledged, "but it doesn't erase the need to verify statements made about those systems." "You're illustrating my point as you sit there," Serena said. "You're asking me to continually prove my credibility while the entities I've spoken about remain largely abstract and unnamed." "Institutions don't sit on sofas under stage lights," Victoria replied, still quiet. "People do. That's exactly why scrutiny has to be even." Silence followed, not jagged, just heavy. Serena studied Victoria, weighing her. Victoria met the look, not hostile, not reassuring, simply present. "I came here to talk honestly," Serena said at last, more slowly. "Honesty struggles to survive when every sentence is pulled apart." "Honesty," Victoria replied gently, "is at its strongest when it can withstand exactly that." Serena's lips pressed into a line. Her breathing was still contained, but just a bit faster than before. She had begun to understand that this wasn't a platform she could direct purely through vulnerability. Insight tonight did not reward untested narrative. And for the first time that evening, Serena looked genuinely tired. Victoria glanced towards the main camera and then back. "We're going to pause briefly," she said. "When we return, I'd like to explore responsibility, what it means for public figures to speak, and what happens when trust, on either side, fractures." Serena didn't respond verbally. She gave a single nod, but it wasn't agreement, it was restraint. Anyone watching could feel it. The tipping point wasn't something they'd already passed, it was straight ahead. When they came back from the break, there was no dramatic flourish, just the low murmur of equipment, the soft pulse of the backdrop, and two women who now understood exactly what they were engaged in. The camera light snapped red again. Victoria didn't bother with a presentational smile. She went straight in. "Before the interval," she said evenly, "we began talking about responsibility, especially the responsibility attached to public testimony." Serena sat even straighter than before. It looked perfect, too perfect, back aligned, hands folded, chin tipped just high enough to signal she would not be cowed. "I'm very aware of responsibility," she said. "I wake up with it." Victoria inclined her head. "Then let's look at consequences." That word landed differently. "Your interviews, your documentary projects, your written pieces have had tangible effects on how people view the monarchy, on individual reputations, on diplomatic relationships. Do you feel you share responsibility for those effects?" Serena didn't rush her reply. When it came, it was polished but defensive. "I think truth has ripple effects. If institutions crumble under honest reflection, that's not on the person telling their story. And if that reflection," Victoria said gently, "rests on accounts that shifted or expanded over time." Serena's eyes sharpened. "Are you accusing me of lying?" "I'm saying," Victoria replied, "that some of your past statements don't fully align with later ones." "That's called growth," Serena snapped. "Are people not allowed to process and articulate differently as they heal?"
Growth tends to bring more clarity, Victoria said. In some parts of this story, it seems to have brought more questions. You're treating nuance as if it's inconsistency, Serena shot back. That's not only unfair, it's dishonest. Viewers will decide what's fair. My role is to give them enough context to make their own minds. And who does that for me? Serena demanded, leaning forward. Who steps in when my words are chopped up, recirculated, and handed back to the public, dressed in doubt? That, Victoria said after a beat, is exactly why I keep returning to precision. Serena gave a short, brittle laugh. There it is again, precision, as if trauma shows up with time codes and footnotes. Public claims do, Victoria replied quietly. The silence that followed didn't just buzz with tension, it carried recognition. This feels adversarial, Serena said at last. The stakes are high, Victoria answered. I'm not on trial, Serena said. You're not, Victoria agreed, but stories that have reshaped public opinion are. That's what we're examining. You're turning my life into a debate topic, Serena said. I'm separating your personal experiences, Victoria answered, from the wider assertions built on top of them. And this, Serena said, arms crossing over her chest for the first time, closed, guarded, is exactly why people stop talking. The moment they do, everything is sliced apart under a microscope. People also stop trusting, Victoria replied gently, when they sense that questions themselves are being treated as hostile. That one dug deeper than most. So what would you have preferred? Serena asked incredulously. For me to stay silent forever? Pretend everything was fine? I think that when anyone chooses to speak publicly about events that affect others, there's a parallel responsibility to be as accurate and as consistent as possible, even when it's hard. You're asking for perfection, Serena replied, frustration pushing through, from a human being. I'm asking for alignment between what's been said at different times, Victoria responded. Now you want a tidy narrative, Serena said, but real life looks nothing like that. It's messy, it doubles back. Then present it as a work in progress, Victoria said calmly, not as something settled and definitive. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop another degree. So now I'm guilty of sounding too certain, Serena asked, voice sharpening. You've spoken in absolutes on occasion, Victoria said. Show me, Serena challenged. Victoria didn't hesitate. You've stated that you had no support inside the palace, and later you described specific individuals who tried in limited ways to help you. You said you were cut off financially with no notice, but public briefings indicate there was transitional support for a time. Those are your words, Serena, not mine. You're cherry-picking lines, Serena interrupted, her voice rising. I'm quoting them, Victoria said. The self-control Serena had wrapped around herself finally slipped. You're doing exactly what the tabloids do, she said sharply, dressing suspicion as neutrality. My job isn't to flatter you or the palace, Victoria replied, her tone now firmer but still even. It's to ask hard questions on behalf of people watching. This is not journalism, Serena said hotly. This is entrapment. Entrapment requires trickery, Victoria answered. I've been very clear about what I'm asking and why. Serena's breathing quickened. Her look was still polished, but the patience behind it was gone. You brought me here, she said. You promised a fair exchange. And that's what you've had. Fair doesn't mean unchallenged. This, Serena said with a short, disbelieving laugh, is exactly why I avoid interviews like this. Then why agree to this one? Victoria asked, almost softly. I agreed, Serena said, because I believed this program would handle my words with integrity. And integrity, Victoria replied, includes asking what others might shy away from. Serena shook her head, her eyes bright with held-back anger. No, integrity includes recognizing when a line has been crossed.
"And who draws that line?" Victoria asked quietly. "The interviewer or the interviewee?" "For someone who talks so much about power structures," Serena said, "you seem remarkably comfortable wielding one." "I'm responsible for the platform I sit on. That's the only power I have." "You're not hearing me," Serena said, her voice rising. "I am hearing you," Victoria said. "I'm also hearing the details that either match or don't match what's already out there." That was it. The last restraint broke. Serena uncrossed her arms abruptly and sat forward. "You came in with a script you wanted to follow," she said. "You decided in advance to dismantle me." "I came in with questions," Victoria responded, her expression settling into something resolute. "And you won't stop until you force my answers into the shape you want," Serena said. "Until they sit comfortably alongside each other," Victoria replied. "This is hostile," Serena said flatly. "This is thorough," Victoria answered. Serena half rose, then stood. "I'm finished being dissected. This isn't serving anyone." "We still have some time," Victoria said calmly. "There are important issues we haven't reached." "No," Serena replied, smoothing her skirt with steady hands. "We really haven't." The control room fell quiet. No one had planned for this, not really. "You're welcome to continue the broadcast without me," Serena said, her tone now glacially polite. "I'm not staying in a conversation set up to undermine my humanity." Victoria remained seated. "Walking away won't answer the questions that remain," she quietly said. Serena paused at the edge of the set and turned back. "Staying won't change how you're